If you look at the texting conversation, to me, it just seems like a simple conversation of two people getting together to meet out on a first date.
But what follows that first date is a crime that shocks the Midwest when a severed leg is found near a golf course along Lake Michigan,
I just think it's just horrific.
spurring a chase across Milwaukee with detectives on the hunt for more body parts.
You just use the clues that you have. Why is there a leg here? How could a leg have gotten here? What nefarious things could have possibly gone on here?
Quick investigative work leads to an arrest days later, and now the accused murderer is behind bars. But the case itself still brings up many question marks that could soon be answered.
I do expect just a lot of evidence to be put on to show that the police had reasonable suspicion and good grounds to believe that he actually murdered her.
The case takes us back to the start of the month when, on April 2nd, a severed leg was found here at Warnemont Park in Cudahy, Wisconsin. That's just south of Milwaukee. Investigators noted the leg had pink nail polish and appeared to have been sawed off. According to a complaint, there were multiple cutting impressions around the amputation point, as well as sharp force trauma to the exposed femur bone. However, the top of the femur bone appeared to have been snapped off. The leg appeared to have been intentionally severed with a sharp instrument, including the bone being sawn halfway through. The leg wasn't decomposing yet either, meaning it had likely been dropped off in the recent past. Here's where we bring in trial attorney Affy Patterson to discuss the case. What are the first thoughts going through investigators' minds? How are they going to connect this to someone when all they have is a piece of a body?
So I think again, they did exactly what they were supposed to do. They canvassed the area, they looked for any signs, any clues. I think I read in the affidavit of probable cause how a certain detective knew that area and knew in order to be in that area, you had to have special access. There was a gate that prevented you from getting to that area. So I think they just, they used every tool that they had, and they did a good job. You just use the clues that you have. Why is there a leg here? How could a leg have gotten here? What nefarious things could have possibly gone on here? You think of that and then you take it from there.
From there meant detectives began the investigation immediately. They started by getting surveillance video from nearby Cudahy High School that faces the park and the shoreline. Video showed a vehicle heading toward the drop-off location at about 2:53 a.m. on April 2nd. That same morning, the Cudahy Water Department reported that someone had rammed a vehicle into the gate. So detectives went to the scene and collected broken pieces from that vehicle. They were eventually determined to belong to a Honda Civic. Remember that make and model, it comes back later. But according to Affy, all this legwork was the right move.
Every department, every district is different. Every department has resources assigned to different priorities. But I think that absolutely they did exactly what they were supposed to do and what's customary. They canvassed the area. They looked for businesses and residential places that may have had video, which was really helpful for them. They just uncovered everything that they could, and I think that it seems that they spent a considerable amount of time very, very quickly looking into the situation, which is why they got the result they did.
So the same evening that the severed leg is found, investigators first hear the name Sade Robinson when a friend reported her missing at about 9 p.m. She worked at a Milwaukee restaurant called Pizza Shuttle, but didn't show up for her shift that day. The friend told police that Sade's last known location was at Duke's on Water, a sports bar near the Milwaukee River. Her Snapchat location was from the day before, on April 1st. About this same time, investigators are connecting the dots to a vehicle fire from the early morning hours of April 2nd. It was found on the north side of Milwaukee at about 7:30 in the morning, and the car was, you guessed it, a 2020 Honda Civic. Investigators later determined the car had been registered to Sade. In the trunk, they found the clothing she was wearing the evening of April 1st, a black puffer coat, light blue ripped jeans, and white socks, along with her dark grayish-brown purse. They also found Sade's iPhone in the trunk. Initially, she had been reported missing, and then around the same time, part of these remains were recovered, and investigators kind of connected the dots. But at first, it was only that she may be associated with these remains. Why would it have taken so long for them to publicly say, yes, these are the remains belonging to Sade?
Because I think it's, you're going through an investigation. You want to cross all of your T's, dot all of your I's. So you don't want to just come out. We're so used to being in a place now, the last, 8, 9 years, where we get information and, we just run with it and we take it to the public because, that's where we are with social media. Everything is at our fingertips. But I think that investigators and officers have a higher obligation, and they need to make sure that they've gathered the proper evidence and that they've gone through all the proper channels before they release information. And they also want to be sensitive to the family.
And it was really Sade's friends and family who helped in the investigation. They told police Sade used the Life 360 app that allows users to share their locations with other people. Upon checking Life 360, a friend observed that her phone appeared to be in Warnemont Park around 4:33 a.m. on April 2nd, 2024. And you'll remember that's where the severed leg was found about 13 hours later. What would all of that look like as far as investigators digging into the night that they did spend together? Because it was the first date, the first time that they were together, and then she was never seen again.
Yeah, and I think that they did a really fine job. If you look again at the affidavit of probable cause, I think they subpoenaed her texting information. I don't know what company they use. I'm so familiar with Cellbrite. Everybody uses that, but I think that they put together a fantastic timeline, and everything was so detailed because of the data that they retrieved from her phone. If you look at the texting conversation, to me, it just seems like a simple conversation of two people getting together to meet out on a first date.
All this pushed the investigation into high gear, especially when investigators took a look at Sade's text history. There's a copy of the conversation in the criminal complaint. The 414 number, a Milwaukee area code, is Sade's number. The 262 number is the person she was meeting up with. Detectives later traced that number to Maxwell Anderson. More on him later. So here's what the conversation looks like. Sade starts it off. Where are we meeting? I can do 5. Downtown somewhere? Okay. Brought house on 3rd? Perfect. Okay, I'm going to shower quick. I'll probably get there more around 5:15. Are you hungry? I need to stop at Twisted Fisherman to pick up my W-2 from last year, and we could eat there first. Okay, and yes. Are we eating at the Brought House or at the other place? Let's eat at Twisted. I'm feeling seafood. Yes, I love seafood. Sounds good. I'm about to leave. I'll be there soon. And here are the last 3 messages. Quote, just got to Twisted. Are you inside? Yes. So through all this, detectives learned Sade and Maxwell Anderson are meeting up for a first date at this place, Twisted Fisherman in Milwaukee. Per the text conversation, we know Maxwell said he used to work there, and that's later corroborated with staff who spoke to Maxwell that night. He said he was, quote, staying at the Twisted Fisherman to meet a female for a first date.
You don't think that someone who is going to take you to a place where they were employed for a first date, you don't think that they would do anything harmful to you afterwards, right? I'm sure she felt like she was in a great and safe space.
Surveillance video from Twisted Fisherman shows Maxwell enter the restaurant at 5:09 p.m. on April 1st. 11 minutes later, Sade walks in and sits next to him, and together they leave at 6:24 p.m. To figure out the rest of their movements, detectives went back to Sade's phone. After spending time at Twisted Fisherman, Sade's phone traveled to the area near Dukes on Water, the same place her friend saw as her Snapchat location. From there, Sade's phone travels to a residential area in southwest Milwaukee. The phone pings in the exact location of Maxwell Anderson's home. Hours after that, the phone pings at Warnemont Park, where the severed leg was later discovered.
They did a fantastic job itemizing everything from the text messages to where she was at the first location, the second location, his home, and where her, we don't know if the phone was necessarily with her, but where her phone was until it was discovered.
Witness the lies.
I didn't lie to you on that polygraph, I promise.
The cover-ups.
I could see his brain on
The moments they confessed.
I grabbed one of the kitchen knives. I killed him.
Outrageous police interrogations.
I know, I forgot the head. I wanted the head.
You have to see to believe.
Oh my God.
Law and Crime interrogations. Subscribe today.
On April 4th, investigators take Maxwell into custody at a traffic stop and execute a search warrant for his home. Inside, blood was located on bedding in one of the bedrooms and on the walls leading toward the basement. Several gasoline containers were located in the garage/storage area. 2 days after all this, on April 6th, investigators find a human foot and flesh in northwest Milwaukee. Investigators determined this foot and the leg found at Warnemont Park appear to be from the same individual, particularly due to skin tone, size, and having matching pink nail polish. It's important to note the foot and the flesh were found about 1 block from where Sade's burning car was recovered days prior. It's also important to note Maxwell Anderson was caught on bus surveillance video in the area near the burning car just after it was first reported. According to the criminal complaint, he was wearing the exact clothing depicted on the subject fleeing the scene of the vehicle arson, including the large tan backpack with tan straps. But at this point, we still didn't know Maxwell's name. We as the public knew about this case, knew that the remains had been discovered, someone was in custody, a person of interest, but no charges had been filed. So why would it take so long from the point that he was detained to when he finally was charged?
Again, it depends. When you're detained, you can be detained for a certain period, for an investigatory period, but you have to go before a judge within a certain amount of time and be charged with a crime. So I did not read the fact that he was detained for 1 week. Usually it's 48 hours, for a felony, 24 hours for a misdemeanor before you go before a judge. So I don't know if he was detained and he was held maybe on, I don't know if he had any prior charges. Maybe he was held with a probation violation or something of that sort. But usually it's 48 hours for a felony. But again, I think within that week, investigators had time to cross their T's, dot their I's, and do all the investigating that they needed to do to be able to get something that would stick, get a charge that would stick.
Maxwell was finally charged on April 12th. And the charges that he faces right now are first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and then arson. Are these appropriate charges? Could he face additional charges?
Oh, absolutely, they're appropriate charges. Absolutely.
And is it possible that they add charges in addition to what he already faces?
They can always add charges. There are always things that you can uncover as you investigate, and they're going to continue their investigation. So absolutely, charges can be put on at any time.
From here, there could still be more investigative work ahead. Is it possible that additional parts of the body could be found around the area?
It could be found anywhere. It's so frustrating, just thinking about it and talking about her as a leg and as body parts. It's frustrating because we've all been young, or we know young people who, you just hope for the best for them, and to just have them reduced to a leg, it's kind of frustrating. But yeah, body parts could be anywhere. And again, I'm sorry, it's just really upsetting to hear and to just talk about.
And while the nature of the case is gruesome, Affy doesn't believe that will slow down investigators. I think another difficult aspect of this case is that she was dismembered, that different remains were found in different locations. So is that going to make things more difficult in terms of deciphering how she was killed or where and when?
I don't think so. When you leave it up to the coroner to determine how she died, time of death, I think it'll be fine. I don't think the dismemberment is going to be an issue. But of course, the more information you have, the better. But no, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
But we're still unclear why any of this happened at all. How important in a case like this is motive and determining what led up to Sade's murder?
And, thank goodness motive is never an element of a crime. I think when you have jurors always want to know, because, they're human beings, we're all human beings. Why? Why would you do this? What was going through your mind? Was there some sort of mental illness, or had you already been planning this? Had you done this to other people? We always want to know what the motive is, but it's not an element of the crime, so it's not going to play a role in his prosecution. But of course, it's nice to have a motive to be able to explain something to a jury, or his defense team might want to emphasize a lack of or the absence of a motive. But again, it's not an element of a crime.
You mentioned his defense team. What sort of defense could Maxwell Anderson have in a case like this?
Insanity, or it wasn't me.
How would his defense go to prove either of those things?
Let's say if not guilty by reason of mental infirmity or insanity. You would have to prove that there's some sort of diagnosis. At the time that he committed the crime, he did not have the capacity to understand what he was doing. He had some type of mental disease or defect. You'd have to prove that. You'd probably want to look into a history of, to see if he has a history of mental illness, or see if he can get a mental health evaluation, maybe be diagnosed with some sort of mental illness. Otherwise, he could just argue that, of course, it wasn't him, but there's so much overwhelming evidence that shows that it was him. So I think that would be a challenge for his defense team. But those are the only two defenses I can think of right away.
We don't quite know why, but what about the how? Another question mark we have in the case right now is the murder weapon. We know, according to the criminal complaint, that parts of Sade's body appear to have been sawed off, but we don't have any sort of weapon right now. Is that going to be something really important for the prosecution to present in the case, or does it even matter?
It does matter, but I don't think you need a murder weapon to get a conviction, just like you don't always need a body to get a conviction. So it's a matter. It may be something that's of benefit to his defense, but at the end of the day, I don't think it matters.
But it's likely there are things about this case we still don't know yet. And being from Wisconsin myself, I've actually heard some off-the-record information about this case from multiple different people. This hasn't been made public, but I have seen other news stations locally in Milwaukee reporting similar things, allegations that there may have been a sex dungeon in his basement, that the room may have been soundproofed, things like that. Not confirmed yet, but some people are talking about it. Is this information that we could expect to see at a prelim?
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you say that, because when I was reading this, my thoughts were, who has come before this young girl? Who has he victimized before? So it makes so much sense that you say that he's got a sex dungeon, and maybe he lures young women to his home for whatever private practices he has. But that makes so much sense that you say that.
And I am wondering too, in that vein, this is pretty severe to go right to murder and then dismemberment. So as you were saying, there could have been prior women or men who he had victimized before this. So is it possible that seeing his name or his photo across Wisconsin, that these people would come forward with additional information?
Absolutely. And not only that, I think that it's going to trigger thoughts. People might say, oh, he's a pretty good guy. We would never expect anything of him. And then you might start thinking, wait a second, he does have like these odd habits. He has these odd patterns. He has, these odd proclivities that I pretty much dismissed as, that's just him. But no, maybe it triggers you to think that, hey, maybe it's a little bit more. Maybe I'll come forth. Maybe I'll talk to the officers. And maybe that can help this investigation.
And next week, he's due in court for his preliminary hearing. What could we expect there?
So a preliminary hearing is just when you basically have the investigating officers, and you may have some witnesses, and you testify, and you just discuss basically the evidence that you have against that person. A preliminary hearing is what we in some places call a probable cause hearing. And basically the court makes a probable cause determination to say that, yes, this person can be charged with a crime, or these charges will stick. We can try this person. So I do expect just a lot of evidence to be put on to show that the police had reasonable suspicion and good grounds to believe that he actually murdered her.
Maxwell Anderson is set to appear Monday for his preliminary hearing. For now, he's being held on $5 million bond. Reporting for Law&Crime, I'm Sade Gillespie.